Hello everybody, my name is Ioanna Pagoni and I would like to welcome you to the first lecture of our module regarding sustainable mobility in tourist destinations. This will be an introductory lecture where we are going to discuss about what sustainable mobility is and what the related European strategy for sustainable mobility indicates about it. Then we will focus on tourist mobility, presenting its particularities and how we can achieve the sustainable goal in tourist destinations. First of all, I would like to make clear that sustainable mobility goes far beyond the environment and beyond reducing emissions. It is about social, economic, and environmental sustainability. The Venn diagram presented in this slide shows the relationship among these three main pillars of sustainability, indicating that none of them can function optimally without both of the others. Sustainable mobility requires the intersection of all of the three pillars, which means that the transportation systems need to be profitable, socially acceptable, and environmentally friendly, as well as viable, livable, and equitable. The above relationship is also captured at the definitions that have been already prepared by several organizations. For example, the European Union Council of Ministers of Transport have defined a sustainable transportation system as one that allows the basic access and development needs of individual companies and society, and also talks about safety, health, and equity. In addition, the United Nations include in their definition for sustainable mobility the aspects of economy, society, safety, affordability, accessibility, efficiency, resilience, as well as the environmental impact. Although the transportation sector contributes to the economic growth of Europe, it also has several negative externalities. Based on the current statistics, transport accounts for 24% of energy-related carbon emissions. Thus, the European Community has developed a series of policies, initiatives and measures against the climate change. In this slide, you can see some of these initiatives. The first is the European Green Deal, which was approved in 2020, and it is a set of policy initiatives with the aim to make the European Union climate neutral by 2050. It includes several sectors of the European economy, including also transportation. As part of this initiative, a comprehensive strategy on sustainable and smart mobility is implemented, which aims at increasing the uptake of zero-emission vehicles, making sustainable mobility solutions for the public and businesses, supporting digitalization and automation, as well as improving connectivity and access. Finally, we have the European missions for climate neutral and smart cities, which involves several stakeholders across Europe, authorities, citizens, businesses and investors, with the aim to deliver 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030 and ensure that these cities will act as an experimentation and innovation hub for other European follower cities. Just recently, the European Community announced the 100 cities around Europe that will be climate neutral and smart cities, as you can see in this map. Another initiative, which is global regarding sustainability, includes the Sustainable Development Goals, which have been adopted by the European nations in 2015. These are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030 all people enjoy peace and prosperity. They include 17 Sustainable Development Goals, some of which are very related to mobility, especially Goal 11 of these Sustainable Development Goals promotes the access to safe, affordable, accessible and sustainable transport systems. The need for more sustainable planning of mobility has been also widely recognized since 2013, where the first edition of the European Guidelines for Developing and Implementing a Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan was published. In general, a Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan proposes a different approach to the traditional transport planning, posing more attention to the involvement of the society, including citizens and stakeholders, and promotes a new mobility culture where urban areas are acceptable, providing high quality and sustainable mobility to all. The Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan cycle, which is shown in this slide, visualizes the different steps and phases that are followed in a sustainable urban mobility plan, which are of course adapted based on the specific needs of each area. Assuming that tourism is a significant component of the urban mobility, these plans should indicate possible sustainable strategies and measures to reduce the impacts of tourist flows on the urban mobility system. But now let's focus on tourist mobility. Tourism and mobility are strictly connected through two different mobility forms. On the one hand, we have the tourist mobility, which is generated by the need to reach a destination, and this is called access mobility. On the other hand, we have the tourist flows, which are generated by tourist activities at the destination, and this can be defined as the internal mobility. For each of these mobility forms, different transport modes can be used by the travelers, ranging from public transportation to personal cars, as well as active transportation such as cycling and walking in the case of internal mobility. But why do we consider tourist mobility as a different component from the other forms? It is because of the specific particularities that need to be taken into account in touristic destinations regarding their mobility. One of the main characteristics of tourism mobility is seasonality, where we observe demand peaks in specific time periods, resulting in an efficient use of the transport infrastructure and a pressure on the relevant transport capacity. Especially tourist flows are often centered on a few locations, such as on tourist hotspots as well as around ports and around airports, providing access to the destination. Around these locations, the traffic increases during specific times of the day, for example when a ship or an airplane arrives at the destination, as well as at specific times of the year. For example, in Greek islands we have increased flows of demand around airports and ports during August, during the summer period. This phenomenon causes traffic congestion as well as environmental issues. A second challenge which is related to the mobility in tourist destination is regarding the tourist mobility patterns. These can be different from those of citizens, but also can be different depending on the tourist type and the destination that we consider. For example, eco-tourists might differ significantly from the mass tourists in terms of their mobility choices. Finally, in several tourist destinations, the mobility of tourists is still unknown, thus further studies need to be conducted to identify their profile and their preferences regarding mobility. Last but not least, in many destinations, tourist mobility is largely characterized by dominance of car usage due to the lack of suitable and affordable alternatives to private cars across the destination. Especially on islands where the density and the quality of transport network vary across its urban and rural areas, the private car seems to be the most convenient alternative for visitors. Considering all the above challenges, the concept of Sustainable Island Mobility Plan was introduced by the CIVINET Cyprus Greek network to promote flexible, sustainable and accessible mobility in island regions. The Sustainable Island Mobility Plan builds on the methodology of a Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, but adjusted to the specific problems and challenges of small and medium-sized islands. Based on the Sustainable Island Mobility Plan, particular attention on understanding the differences between the needs and behavior of residents and tourists is needed. And furthermore, whereas Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan would typically focus on achieving a car-free city, a key objective of the Sustainable Island Mobility Plan is car-free tourism. Based on the current experience that we have on Sustainable Island Mobility Plan, it is essential to collect mobility data throughout the year, both for residents and tourists, to get their feedback and identify problems and needs, and come up with feasible sustainable solutions for the touristic destination. Such solutions could include shared services integrated with micromobility, new public transport solutions such as on-demand minibuses that provide personalized and flexible mobility services to tourists based on their demand, integrated tourism-related services with mobility, such as providing safe and attractive routes for walking and cycling, while electromobility with the provision of charging solutions for electric vehicles should not be ignored. Finally, it is important to ensure that tourists are getting aware of the available mobility solutions at the destination. Thus, raising awareness activities and campaigns should take place at the touristic destination in order to disseminate and promote the offered sustainable mobility services to the audience. I would like to thank you for your attention.